All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today we're going deep on Ryujin.
Ryujin,
Yes,
yes.
right. We're looking at their marketing stuff. And they're really pushing this idea of like an experiment in
Yeah.
community ownership,
Yeah.
which is, a pretty bold claim in the crypto world.
It is. It is. We've seen a lot of so-called community-driven projects, and honestly, a lot of them don't really live up to the hype.
So basically what we're going to do is try to figure out if Ryujin is the real deal or just, more marketing fluff. And to get there, we got to start with, what they even mean by decentralization.
Yeah, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean for, someone who might want to invest?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, think about it this way. In a decentralized system, power isn't held by one person or even a small group. It's spread out, distributed among all the people holding the tokens.
Okay, so no kings or emperors in Ryujin land.
Yeah.
Just, the will of the people.
Right. Think of it as the difference between, say, a monarchy and a direct democracy.
Gotcha. But how do they actually do that? I mean, lots of projects say they're decentralized, but then you find out a few people control most of the tokens.
That's true. That's true. And Ryujin's documentation actually addresses that directly. They give an example, what if one entity owns, say, 30% of the tokens?
Oh,
Right. Even if those tokens are locked, that entity still holds a lot of power.
for sure.
Ryujin claims to be different from the start. No pre-mine, no special deals for founders or insiders. Everyone buys their tokens on the open market, just like everyone else.
So level playing field from the get-go.
Okay.
I like that. But who's behind it all? Who's actually building this thing?
Well, that's where things get a little mysterious.
Ooh.
The founder goes by the name Ryoshi, and their identity is a complete unknown.
Wait, hold on. Completely anonymous? We talking Satoshi Nakamoto level of anonymous here? That's a bold move, especially in crypto where trust is everything.
It is, and it definitely raises questions. On the one
Yeah.
hand, anonymity can protect against censorship and pressure.
I see that.
On the other hand, it makes it harder to assess the team, their credibility, their intentions.
So it's kind of like a gamble. You're putting your faith in, a phantom leader.
It's a bit of a leap of faith, that's for sure. But I guess that's part of the whole experiment, right?
True. But it's not just about, the mystery of an unknown founder, right? They're tying this into a bigger thing called Omikami, something about Japanese mythology.
Exactly. The project's connected to this Omikami ecosystem, and it draws inspiration from, Japanese mythology.
Okay, so we've got decentralization, we've got anonymity, and now we're adding ancient mythology to the mix. This is getting more and more interesting. Tell me more about this Omikami connection.
Well, the central figure in Omikami is Amaterasu Omikami. She's the sun goddess in Japanese mythology.
So goddess, okay.
It's a pretty clever way to tap into a rich cultural background and create a unique identity for the project,
Yeah, I can see that. It adds a whole layer of storytelling and symbolism that you don't really see in crypto, which can be pretty, dry sometimes.
Right. And it could definitely appeal to a specific audience, people interested in Japanese culture or mythology, or even just folks looking for something a little different.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a sense of the philosophy and the visuals, but what about the nitty-gritty? We know it's a new cryptocurrency, but what blockchain are they using? What are the tokenomics?
Ryujin is an ERC20 token, which means it runs on the Ethereum blockchain.
Okay, so they're not building their own blockchain. They're using Ethereum's. Got it.
Right. Which means they inherit Ethereum's security and infrastructure.
Makes sense. But doesn't that also mean they inherit Ethereum scalability issues?
That's a valid point. Ethereum has been working on that, especially with the switch to proof of stake.
Oh yeah, proof of stake, more energy efficient, right?
Exactly. And it should handle more transactions, which could benefit Ryujin in the long run.
Cool. So we've talked about the decentralization, the anonymous founder, the mythology thing, the technical stuff. What about the token itself? How many are there? How are they distributed?
Ryujin has a fixed supply, a total of 1 billion 1 Thelian RYU tokens.
Wow, that's a lot of zeros.
And remember, they emphasize that 100% of the liquidity is locked on UNCX.
UNCX. For those of us who aren't DeFi experts, what's that?
It's a decentralized exchange, a DEX, a platform where you can trade crypto without a traditional stock exchange.
Gotcha. So locking the liquidity there, that's to prevent
Rug pulls.
rug pulls. Okay, that doesn't sound good.
Imagine, developers suddenly pull out all the liquidity, drain the value. Investors are left with nothing.
Yikes.
Locking the liquidity helps prevent that, builds trust, shows commitment.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What other mechanisms do they use for fairness, transparency?
They've renounced the contract,
Renounce.
meaning they've given up control over the code that runs the token. No one can just change the rules.
Another step towards decentralization. No backdoors, no sneaky stuff. Okay, it sounds like they're walking the walk when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But how do they actually build a functioning ecosystem with all these limitations?
Well, that's where their roadmap comes in. And it's pretty ambitious.
Okay, so we've talked about the foundation of Ryujin, the whole decentralization thing, the anonymous founder, the mythology tie-in. But where do they go from here? What's on this roadmap?
Well, one of the first things they mention is developing peer-to-peer games based on, you guessed it, the Omikami mythology.
So not just a token, but an actual gaming ecosystem built around these mythical figures.
That's a pretty big goal, right? What kind of games are we talking here?
The specifics are, still under wraps.
Right.
But they hint at different genres like adventure games, strategy, maybe even some player versus player combat.
And remember that whole Amaterasu Omikami thing, the sun goddess? I'm really curious to see how that narrative gets woven into the actual gameplay. Will players be fighting demons, building shrines? It's pretty exciting to think about, especially for gamers who are looking for something different than the usual fantasy or sci-fi stuff.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, they're also looking into virtual reality integration. Whoa, VR. Now, that's interesting. I mean, we've seen VR starting to take off in gaming and other areas, but bringing it into the crypto world, that could be a total game changer. Imagine exploring these mythological landscapes in VR, fully immersed.
Yeah, it's definitely ambitious. They're aiming for a really unique experience.
It is. But VR is still kind of niche, right? A lot of people think of clunky headsets and motion sickness.
It's true. It's true. It'll be interesting to see how they, tackle the technical challenges and make it accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah, the tech is getting better all the time, but there's still a ways to go. But if they can pull it off, it could be a huge draw for both crypto people and gamers.
Absolutely. And they're not forgetting about the DeFi side of things either. They're developing a dedicated DeFi wallet specifically for the Omikami ecosystem.
Okay, hold on a sec. Back up for those of us who aren't DeFi gurus. What does that mean? What can you actually do with a DeFi wallet?
So DeFi stands for Decentralized Finance, right? It's basically recreating traditional financial services like lending, borrowing, trading, but without banks or middlemen.
Okay.
A DeFi wallet lets you interact with those decentralized applications.
So with this Omikami wallet, you could lend out your Ryujin tokens, earn interest, even trade them for other cryptocurrencies, all within this self-contained ecosystem.
Exactly. And because it's built on Ethereum, they benefit from that network's security and transparency.
It's like having your own personal bank, but it's all run by code, not some big institution.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And they're also planning on introducing 3D NFTs, which sounds pretty cool.
NFTs are, they're unique digital assets. They can represent ownership of anything, really, from digital art to, items in a game.
Right. But most NFTs we see are just static images, right?
Yeah, but 3D NFTs add a whole other dimension. Imagine owning a unique 3D model of, say, a mythical creature from the Omikami universe.
I can see that being a big hit with collectors. And gamers, for sure. Especially if they can, tie these 3D NFTs into the VR experiences. Imagine owning a virtual sword or a piece of armor you can actually use in the game.
Yeah, it's a cool way to blur the lines between, the digital and the physical, create a more immersive experience.
Definitely. So we've got games, VR, the DeFi wallet, 3D NFTs.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really building a whole universe around this Ryujin token. But at the end of the day, all of this depends on one thing: community adoption. If no one uses it, it's all, pointless.
You're absolutely right, and that's where their focus on community governance comes in.
Right. We touched on that earlier, but it's worth revisiting. How will this community governance actually work in practice?
They're aiming for a system where, token holders can propose and vote on key decisions.
So everything from upgrades to the system, how they use the funds, even who they partner with.
Exactly. They're putting the future of the project in the hands of the community. It's a risky move.
I can imagine. It's hard enough to get a group of people to agree on where to go for dinner, let alone make decisions about a complex crypto project.
It's definitely a challenge. Decentralized decision-making can be slow, messy, And there's always the risk of manipulation, a small group trying to sway things their way.
So it's a balancing act, right? They need to empower the community, but also make sure things run smoothly and securely.
Exactly. But if they can make it work, it could be a model for other projects, those that are serious about true decentralization.
It's almost like a social experiment as much as a technological one.
Yeah.
Can a large group of people actually come together and effectively govern something like this? It's a big question.
It is. And we've seen examples of successful DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, in other parts of the crypto space.
Right.
If Ryujin can build a thriving, self-governing community, it could have a ripple effect beyond just gaming or NFTs.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch. But before we get too caught up in all the potential and the hype, we got to remember that Ryujin is still very new.
Very new. And it's operating in a market that is, well, let's face it, volatile and unpredictable.
Exactly. No matter how cool the roadmap, how innovative the features, there are always risks with crypto investments.
Absolutely. And that's why their disclaimer is so important. It's full of crucial information that anyone thinking about investing should carefully consider.
So we've been talking about Ryujin, and it sounds pretty amazing so far. Decentralized, community-driven, mysterious founder, that mythology thing,
Right.
A roadmap that's straight out of sci-fi.
But we have to remember, we're looking at all this through their marketing lens, right? And with any investment, there's two sides to every coin, and that's where their disclaimer comes in.
Exactly. It's where we separate the hype from reality.
For sure.
So let's dig into this disclaimer, see what kind of red flags pop up.
All right, so first thing they highlight is market volatility. Crypto, as we know, it's known for wild price swings.
Oh, yeah.
And Ryujin, they're no exception. They're very clear. The value of your RYU tokens, it can go up, it can go down, and you could lose a lot.
So buckle up, basically.
Yeah, no guarantees of Lambos and moon landings.
Definitely not.
And then there's the regulatory risks. Crypto is still, well, it's the Wild West out there. Governments are still trying to figure out how to regulate it all.
Mm-hmm.
And what's legal today might not be tomorrow. Those changes, they can have a huge impact on a project like Ryujin.
Yeah, it's a risky game.
It is. Then there's the technology risks. Ryujin's an ERC20 token,
Right, built on Ethereum.
So any problems with Ethereum, any vulnerabilities,
Okay.
they could directly impact Ryujin, even if their own code is, rock solid.
It's you could build the strongest house, but if the foundation's weak,
Exactly.
not good.
And even though they've locked funds on a day X to, ensure liquidity,
Right.
there's still the chance of limited liquidity at times.
Meaning?
It might be hard to buy or sell your RYU tokens when you want to.
Ah, I see. So you might get stuck.
You might. Something to keep in mind, especially if you're thinking about, active trading.
Good point. And we also have to remember, Ryujin, they're a young project, big goals, and
Right.
things could go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Timelines could slip, unexpected challenges, who knows?
They're very upfront about that, No guarantees they'll achieve everything they've set out to do.
It's like any startup, really. A lot of potential, a lot of risk.
Exactly. And then there's security, right?
Right.
No system is perfect.
Okay.
They're committed to security, but hacking, phishing attacks, vulnerabilities, those are all real threats.
Yeah. Always got to be careful in the crypto world.
Always. And they're very clear about the speculative nature of this. RYU might go up, it might go down, you could lose everything.
So even though the roadmap, the vision, it's all exciting, we got to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right. Absolutely. Do your own research before you jump in.
Always good advice. They even go out of their way to say they're not affiliated with Mortal Kombat.
Despite the similar name.
Yeah, I guess they want to avoid any confusion there.
And any mention of celebrities, it's purely for entertainment, not endorsements.
Gotcha. So no celebrity shilling.
Nope, just a straight up deep dive like we're doing.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, what does all this mean? Ryujin, it's an experiment,
A fascinating one.
but with risks.
Definitely risks.
It could be your ticket to a world of decentralized gaming, VR experiences, community governance,
It could be.
but no guarantees.
And that's what their disclaimer is all about, right? They're saying, hey, we're being upfront about the potential downsides. Now it's up to you to decide.
Right. Weigh those risks against the rewards.
Exactly.
We've given you the info, the context, the warnings. Now it's your turn. Explore, do your own research, decide if this experiment is for you.
And if you do decide to dive in, do it responsibly.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's our deep dive on Ryujin. Hope you found it informative, engaging.
Yeah, I hope you learned something new.
The crypto world, it's always changing, always something new to discover.
For sure.
So stay curious, stay informed, and as always, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.